Okay, so I made a video today about pre-language, O.C.L.D, and post-language. And then when I was going to edit the video, I noticed that there was something wrong with the audio. Must have not been plugged in completely. And so the audio had this rustle through it, this static noise through it. So I decided to make the video again. Of course, I just talk freely, so I can't really make a video ever again the same. And then halfway through that second video, the electricity fell out. Here on this island we have that. And then I went into the garden, but there were a lot of flies in my face and things like that. And so the whole thing has got a little bit scrambled up. So if you bear with me, I'm going to try to do the best to edit this thing into something that will be something that is still valuable. It's gonna be maybe parts that I repeat because there's two different videos of the same topic but in different ways described, because it just comes as I speak. So bear with me, and it does have some good value, so maybe you'll enjoy it. Okay, welcome back. Today I wanted to speak about pre-language, O.C.L.D, and post-language. And these are basically the three states through which we should go in. I'm saying should go because the majority of humans on Earth certainly do not go to the last state of post-language. But this is the state which we should reach if we want to contribute to our individual freedom, happiness, liberation, enlightenment, or evolution into higher states of consciousness, and therefore also contribute that cell that you are into the larger collective evolution of mankind itself. If we really wish to evolve, we have to evolve out of what I call O.C.L.D. And O.C.L.D, we all know O.C.D, right? We know the obsessive compulsive disorders. Well, the humans on this earth right now have what will be called O.C.L.D, or at least what I call O.C.L.D. I don't know if it's been coined before, but it's obsessive compulsive language disorder, right? Obsessive compulsive language disorder. This is the obsession with putting things into language. Now let's start first before language, pre-language. And as we know, the children on this earth in the human bodies, they get born into a body, whatever that process might be, and then we don't speak. Just like all the animals, human animals also do not speak. The language is a construct. It's a faculty, it's a mechanism that is invented by humans over, let's say, a period of time, where we put signifiers, really sounds. We make a sound like water, water, right? Water, 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 right? In Dutch it's water, and in Spanish it's agua, and all these different languages, different sounds for the same signifier, but different tonations, different sounds. So we take a sound, we say, okay, well, this is the agreement we have that this means, and it signifies that. So in the case of water, that sound, and then written as W-H-T-E-R, right? W-H-T-E-R is water. And so we make that a signifier for the thing, water. Now in language, in childhood, we don't have that. Children don't know how to speak. They don't know how to verbalize. They don't know how to think in language, right? They may have images, but they do not have language. So if you take this, for example, and here is water, and that is not water, because that is that. Water is a sound made that we describe then as a W-H-T-E-R, and this is this. The signifier, therefore, water, is not the thing in itself, that ding aan zichzelf, that thing which is itself, that, water, right? H2O is not this. That's another signifier, but a more chemical, scientific description of water. So, as children, oops, that's the mic. As children, we don't have this language construct. we learn this language construct. So in other words, children are pre-language. However, children are pressed up directly to the experience of what their experience is. They are in the direct experience, but they're merged with experience. They, as awareness, and the experience that they are experiencing is almost one, unified. And so the children are very free. That's why a lot of people say, where has my childhood gone? A lot of people remember the good old days, especially the childhood days when they were worry-free and they had nothing to worry about. And they wonder, why was I so free, and where has that gone? Why am I now so burdened, so heavily laden with all these feelings, emotions, thoughts, worries about the future? Well, that's because language and memory, right? Through memory, language and memory are now the dominant facility that you are using all day. And most people on earth, 99% of the people on earth, are caught in what I would call the obsessive compulsive language disorder. And it certainly is a disorder. The only thing is we haven't realized it on a collective level yet, but it's a massive disorder. It's the absolute obsession, the reification of language, making it into some kind of god. And we are therefore now officially taught addicts, language addicts. We like to always put everything into language. Children don't have that, so they were free. But then as the language started to become a more dominant faculty, a more dominant tool, mechanism that was applied to every single time, to every single thing, to every single event, thought became the unstoppable stream of the monkey mind, crazy O.C.L.D, obsessive compulsive disorder. And instead of evolving out of that disorder, the majority of people on earth are stuck in it. Stuck in a disorder that is so wretched, so destructive, so limiting, so it removes the value, the direct experience, the presence, the nowness, the intensity, the mystery, the beauty of life itself, of all that is this phenomenal thing, which is not a thing, but this phenomenal, moving, liquidy, organic, phenomenal, mystery, totally complex mystery. And language tries to take a sound and give it a meaning and say, well, this sound means this is the signifier, and then you start having language. And therefore, language is trying to trap, trying to capture the direct experience of all that is around us into words, into language. Then once this faculty is used and over-exercised, like in our indoctrinational schools, it becomes a god, it becomes the highest faculty that is adored by man, intellectualism and all this kind of stuff, thinking, and then it becomes the main unstoppable faculty that functions, and we become taught addicts in an attempt to capture what is uncapturable. So the child is free, but the O.C.L.D addict is not, the thought addict is not. The obsessive compulsive language disorder that everybody has, that is no longer free. That's the suffering, the heavily laden, the burdened human being that is constantly trapped in language, constantly obsessed with this compulsive necessity to move with the wording and verbalize and structure and judge and capture and delineate and scribe all of things and all box it in, and therefore remove the flow, the intensity and the richness of life itself. And so we have to get beyond this O.C.L.D state, right, and get to the post-language state. So the child is in the pre-language state, then the child becomes indoctrinated with this language construct mechanism and becomes obsessed with language where the language becomes like a god. Then the habit of this thought process becomes so ingrained that thought becomes incessant, the monkey mind incessant thought, and then that's called the O.C.L.D state, the obsessive compulsive language disorder, and then from there the real mature beings would step out of language again and into being, into the natural state of experiencing, sensing, seeing, smelling, hearing, and being here without having to describe, without having to, well, scribe really, delineate, capture in language whatever the objects around or the events around are, just by experiencing it directly. Be mature enough to have to be able to experience it directly. So we go from pre-language to O.C.L.D. and then to post-language. Now, just to give you an example of how deadening language is. Like I said about water, it doesn't describe water, but let's take another example. Let's take, for example, a peacock. Right? Beautiful bird, magnificent, and it's reduced by language into the simple term peacock. That's it, peacock. Well, when I look at the direct experience of a peacock, obviously I'm not now, but when I look at a peacock and I observe, there is so much mystery. The feathers, made up of individual strands like zippers attached to each other, and then they're made up again of smaller particles, going back as in the pen into the skin with the flesh and the blood and the muscles and the tissues and the tendons and the bones and the organs and all the liquids flowing and the heart beating, the lungs taking up oxygen and spreading it out, and the liver cleaning up and the kidneys doing what they're doing. All of this intense complexity combined with the environment itself around it, of the air that it's breathing, that's coming from the trees. And for example, right now today we have a wave of Sahara dust. I'm in the middle of the Caribbean, right off the coast of South America, above South America in the lower Caribbean islands. And there's a cloud just totally hazy because of the Sahara dust coming all the way from Africa. We are so interconnected with the entire thing. The peacock that is breathing right now is breathing Sahara dust that's becoming part of its system. That's not just peacock. Yeah, that's it, peacock, that's it. That's what we reduced it to. This beautiful, phenomenal, mysterious, extraordinary, just phenomena, just wow, just incomprehensible mystery of beauty. The colors, the glare, the sun, the light, all of the aspects that go with it. And we reduce it with language to peacock. And so once we name something like that a peacock, well, then it's just a peacock, because then we see the P-E-A-C-O-C-K, whatever, right? Like water. Crazy. Language captures, but not just in a way that you say, oh, I got it. No, you didn't get it with language. With language, you never get it. Language can't get the mystery. It can't get the phenomenal. It can't get the God aspect, the life aspect, the universe aspect, the mystery aspect, the Brahman, the ultimate, the layers of dimensions that are way, way, way above what language can try to encapsulate. And that's why even someone like Alan Watts has one of his audios, he describes it really well, how language is this tedious, slow. Even if I were to describe the peacock, well, the peacock, if it would stand right in front of me, bang, there's the peacock. Like I said, it includes the entire universe. The peacock is bound and unbound and tied to and integrated with the entire universe. It's breathing the Sahara dust, all of it happening at once. If I were to describe that in language or scribe that in language, it would take hours. Like I said, you know, the feathers and the colors and the language so slow. Yet there it is, bang, instantaneous, phenomenal, mysterious beauty. Extraordinary. However, what we have on Earth right now is this O.C.L.D, this obsessive compulsive language disorder, which is trying to do just that, to try to desperately and failing miserably at that. So what is meditation? What is quantum resting? What is it that gets us out of this, not just the pre-language state, because the child is bound to get stuck in O.C.L.D. But then once you're stuck in that, we should be mature enough to free ourselves and therefore society from this bound state to this disorder. And it is an extremely bad disorder. If you do not want to, if you do want to test it, just sit down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and do nothing. Rest as whatever is coming up, without making more of it, without becoming, but just being. Without trying to make more or think about things in the future or what needs to be worked out or how it's put into words. Just sit down. What is known as meditation, quantum resting, and quietly, silently, without language, experience. Experience like the child does. A baby that was just born that doesn't speak anything like for several months. Some children don't even speak for beyond a year. A child like that. Sit down like that, but now consciously. And without the habitual, obsessive-compulsive language to intervene. To try to put everything into words. Just sit there in silence and see if this is not an obsessive-compulsive disorder. Obsessive-compulsive language disorder. Trying to always, like a radio station. It's like a personal radio station of crap, right? Here's this, you know how people have sign language for the deaf, and you know they have all the different ways, the hand gestures, because obviously they can't hear this language construct that we have made and are overusing it as thought addicts of this satanic type of AI system that we are now involved in and are addicted to ourselves. We can leave it behind, but we don't want to. That's the case, you see? So, when people use this sign language, it's because when people are speaking and the one that can't hear needs to have a different tool to understand what is being said, right? Or scribed, right? Delineated. Try to capture it in words, but it doesn't work. So they use this other thing, right? We do the same thing. There's just life. There's just happening. There's just the richness, the beauty, the instantaneous, pure perception of life, the flow, the presence, the nowness. And what we can do is have that personal radio station tool, like a personal universal translator, but then a really dumb one, not like the Star Trek universal translator that turns any language into your comprehensive language. No, it's trying to translate the richness of the mystery, the beauty, the complexity, the magnificence of this direct, pure experience of present nowness. The mystery of all that is in that, the richness. And it translates this into this limited, dumbed down, retarded sound construct that somehow is supposed to make more sense of that, which is not possible. It's making it really, really low. So like if we take a painting, for example, it's the same thing. A good painter, even if it's a passionate, loving, kind, nature-loving painter who wants to paint, let's say again, the peacock. He paints the peacock. You can't believe it. Anyway. That's electricity gone, so you gotta come back later. Okay, so I had to go outside for a second because the electricity went off. It's been going off twice a month lately, and incompetent human beings can't keep it going, so time to get off the grid. So I was saying about the painter. The painter then paints this peacock, right? I just sit up here with all the... Now in nature, probably better anyway than inside in a controlled environment. So the painter who paints the peacock, as perfect as he wants to paint the peacock that he paints is made out of paint. It's not growing feathers, it's not digesting food, it doesn't have whitened blood cells, it doesn't have an endocannabinoid system, it doesn't have a hormonal system functioning, it doesn't go from this tiny egg, like where it came out of, this yellow and white smushy stuff, proteins and whatever, into this fully grown peacock, and then it's changing all the time. By the time the painter's finished painting, the real peacock is off somewhere else in the middle of the intricacies and complexities of life, like right here in the garden. All the birds, and all the little insects. It's such a complex system. That's exactly what language tries to do. Like the painter wants to do what language wants to do to this. The painters would want to capture in acrylic paint, let's say, the beauty of the peacock, but the peacock can't be captured like that. The peacock is a three-dimensional, whatever you want to call it, four-dimensional, five-dimensional, phenomenal, complicated system. So language tries to get us to become trapped. And this is because the descriptive faculty that language is nothing but a false construct. It's an illusion. So in order for us to become free from this O.C.L.D, from this language disorder, we have to actually start and sit quietly and just listen to the rustling of the trees and the sound of the hens and the birds, and just take it in. Take it in naturally. Take it in without the necessity, the obsessive compulsive necessity, to have to put and translate it into this retarded, devoluted necessity for language. Language as that construct that seemingly wants to put things that are directly experienced as life itself into this construct, into this box, into this square, box it in, trap it. And so the real freedom is the freedom from what we would call O.C.L.D. Once you can rest, again, not in the pre-language state, not in the obsessive-compulsive language disorder state, but in the acquired state of post-language, post-ego, post-O.C.L.D. The state in which the obsessive-compulsive disorder with this obsessive-compulsive language disorder obsession has been overcome. And to overcome that, we do that in quantum resting. Resting in the absence of thought. Resting in the direct experience as things are without having to describe them or scribe them. Without having to put them into words. Put them into language. Once we can return to that state, or in fact evolve beyond the O.C.L.D state and go to post-language state, we reach an equilibrium. We reach a state of peace, a state of quietude, a state of stillness. Because stillness is the way. Stillness, which is the state of absence of thought, absence of language, absence of the need of language, absence of this compulsive, obsessive need to have this radio station of the monkey mind chatter channel constantly reducing and mummifying, like wrapping in the beauty into this small tiny language box. Once we can rest in that state, we have peace. We have a silence. So you'll notice that all of the satsangs, even all of the teachings, all of the non-duality, all of the Advaita, all of the spiritual teachings, all of the yogas and things. Well, yoga has so far gone from anything spiritual, it's ridiculous. But all the debates and all the discussions and all the Facebook. I mean, Facebook has become an O.C.L.D extension tool. You know, this, even when it's on channels like Advaita or non-duality things, people just discussing all the time in language, trying to reduce the real non-dual state of being the real Advaita, right, which is not two, the real point of being in spirit and not in mind, language, right, in mind, because language is a tool of the mind, small mind, if you wish. Everybody out there, even some of the teachers, of course the teachers themselves at home may be at rest, but everybody is constantly addicted to the necessity, and this compulsive necessity, to revert back to language all the bloody time. All the time, language is idolized. So the responsibility for us is now to be free of this compulsive, obsessive language disorder. And in doing so, we liberate ourselves from this lower level AI. Now, let me be very clear when I say I, or parasitic entities, or demonic programs, or matrix, labyrinth, trap, or any of that. We are the power, which means our attention can rest in this place of now, of presence, of silence, of stillness. Or it can go towards this worldly system of language, this O.C.L.D, this disorder. And the disorder is, and a lot of little flies here, is not pushed upon us. If we are addicts of thought, if we are addicts of language, if we are in the state of O.C.L.D, that's not because some foreign entity is forcing it on us. That may be so, but we're always free to be free of that. So the real mature human being is the human being that goes back into, well, forward, but back into pre-language, but basically that's post-language. Back into a state of being where you know, where you act, where you do, but where language is not obsessively compulsive. So that's the beauty of life. Real mature human beings, real responsible beings do not walk around with placards complaining about Trump or this or that, or saving the seals. There is only one thing we need to do. We need to free ourselves from this obsessive compulsive language disorder. A lot of little flies after the rain. So be now, be here, quantum rest, sit down and watch if your mind, if the obsessive compulsive disorder of thinking is able to be stopped by resting with what is. Just resting with what is. As you can see here, I'm sitting in the garden now. I'll just show you a little bit. This is the garden that I set up. So quiet, so silent. There's over there in the distance you can see an iguana. Here is the beautiful flowers. There he goes. It's going to be running. Such beauty, such silence, such quietude. The rustling of the wind, the chirping of the crickets. This iguana never thinks, never loses language. He just sits there in the sun, hours a day. just resting, like most animals are still capable, because they're in a pre-language state, like a child. And they stay their whole life. Animals stay in the pre-language state. It's a state before where we are, but it certainly is a more peaceful state. Here's some of the pump systems. And a lot of tilapia in this dam here. There's a beautiful bird sipping a little bit of water. Such beauty. We're not living on a real prison planet. We're living on a beautiful paradise planet, which has the O.C.L.D system being the dominant factor, which is causing all the suffering. We are in paradise. But the paradise needs to be liberated. There's a greenhouse. Alright guys, I'm going to leave you at that.